Hey guys, welcome to another video on the Inside Spurs Show. Happy Monday morning. Hope we're all okay. Hope we're all right. Hope the week is going to treat you well. Obviously, international break now. Spurs can't ruin this week for you anymore. Obviously, yeah, look, bad performance yesterday, but lingering on that and sitting on that isn't helping yourself or helping anyone else. So we're going to move on. We're going to dust ourselves down. I wanted to have a bit more of an exploratory sort of video talking about where I think one thing Spurs truly need. Okay, so I'm not going to sit there and you'll have to wait and see what I mean when I talk about it. But I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to dig out other managers. I'm not going to dig out owners, things like that. I'm just talking about on the pitch this one time. Doesn't mean I think that's the only thing we need, but I'm saying there's one thing we definitely need. So I'm keen to see what you guys think. Obviously, let me know down below what you think like the one thing is on the pitch that you think we truly need. I'm interested to know what you guys think. So let's jump in. And by the way, I said in my previous video in the comments down below, I'm not asking you to subscribe when we're down in the dumps, because that feels like I'm profiting off the club being poor for the weekend or the week, because in theory Galatasaray is that as well. I'm not one of those YouTubers. We're not doing that. So let's talk about this thing that I had in mind, because people are going. You get some people saying Ange out of his depth. You get some people saying Levy's the issue. You get some people saying people need to defend the back post better, right? And whilst some of those may be true, the Ange one, by the way, I don't think is true. But also, tell me who you want instead of him. And if you say Graham Potter, I'm just going to ignore what you said, basically. But when I was looking at it, and I said, Ange can't force you to make 3-yard passes. Ange can't defend the back post for you. And half the time, it's just being switched on. But there was one thing I noticed in these last sort of, I guess say last few months of football season. So obviously, last few months of what I mean by that is from August and then in last season. So ignoring basically June, July, right? You know what I mean? And one thing I truly noticed, and I talked about it on Twitter earlier, which if you want to see what I said for myself, go down below. You see my handle. Go and have a look for yourself if you want to. But I basically said the one thing I think they truly miss, and people harp on about, Moussa Dembele, Danny Rose, Toby Alderweireld, Jan Vertonghen. For me, it's Victor Wanyama. And I think this is going to be hilarious. And you're going to sit there and go, Victor Wanyama? What? He only played like one season. Well, that was our best Premier League season that we had. We were fighting for the title. Yes, Leicester won it that year, but we were fighting for the title. He was a crucial part. I think he played 36 times in the Premier League that season. Obviously, after that, he obviously had his injury issues, and look, it was right for him to move on. But in that one season alone, his partnership with Dembele was incredible. And the reason why I say that is because we were going up against teams that had, N'Golo Kante, prime N'Golo Kante. You had teams that could get quite scrappy. You get teams that could kick a lump or two out of you. And, going to places like Stoke and going to lower league teams where they were very physical and they relied on like the high ball, they relied on long balls and things like that. You needed someone that could be able to sweep up and, actually match physicality for physicality. It wasn't Dembele, it was Wanyama. Now, Dembele added to that. The best thing is obviously those two guys as an actual footballer were good footballers, but Dembele added to that with the fact that he could also get physical. He could also put his foot in, but Wanyama was the tone setter. And we don't have that right now. We don't have someone that can just dominate a team. Now, it doesn't have to be a central midfielder, because I think some people go, we need a 6, we need a 6, we need a 6. It doesn't have to be that. It can be a centre-half who just annihilates a defence. Look at Liverpool, for example, Van Dijk. Just annihilates attacks. Who's their holding midfielder? Alexis McAllister. I don't think Alexis is exactly a dominant midfielder. For Man City, it's Rodri. Now, fair enough, that's them. Arsenal play, 4 centre-backs. It allows them to have a lot more steel. I'm looking at Romero going, mate, that should be you. And it hasn't been him. Hell, I even look at Dragic and think you should be able to, I talk about Dragic's physicality and his gifts. It should be you as well. But Victor Wanyama for me was, and I'm not going to go back 30, 40, 50, 60. I'm going back within the last decade. He was one of the key reasons why that Spurs team was fantastic. If you watch back the games, you watch back, clips of those games, it starts with Wanyama winning a duel. The amount of times he'd win a duel. The amount of times he could outmuscle someone. He could, spin away from someone. Yeah, maybe technically wasn't the best player in the world, but he knew his role and he did it magnificently. And how many times did you ever see him caught out of his position? Dembele might get forward, and Dembele had energy to get back, obviously, but Wanyama was like, off you go. If they counter, I'm going to have them, so off you go. That obviously allowed the two fullbacks to go flying forward, and at the time they were the best fullback pairing in the Premier League. And Wanyama was like, I'm going to just annihilate this midfield. So if a counter-attack happens, I'm going to go get the ball. And we don't have that. I like Basuma. Basuma's not that. I like Bentancur. Bentancur's not that. I think Bentancur gets caught out of position a little bit too much. I love him. I think he's brilliant. But I think he gets caught out of position a little bit too much. Basuma doesn't as much. But sometimes switches off. And there's that. There's his issue. Bentancur may not switch off as much, but he's just not where he should be. Basuma's where he should be and sometimes doesn't recognise what's around him. Maybe that is more about where your centre-halves go, look, so-and-so's there, so-and-so's here. Watch out for this, watch out for that. Maybe that's where there's an issue. Maybe there's a communication issue. But with Wanyama, there seemed to be no issue. There also seemed to be a chemistry, and maybe that's what I think Spurs' midfield is massively struggling with. We seem to just chop and change our midfield quite frequently. It's Basuma, Sarr, Kulu. It's Basuma, Kulu, Maddison. It's, Bentancur, Sarr, Maddison. Or you know what I mean? It doesn't seem to be like the main 3 to 4, right? The beautiful thing of those midfields at times is it was Dembele, it was Wanyama. And at times it was Dyer if we needed to have a bit of a rest for one of those guys. But it was those two. And in front of them, obviously, there was a little bit more change. You had your Lamellas, Eriksen's, Ali's, and Son's. There was a bit of rotation between those 4, but it was, 4. It wasn't, wholesale changes. And the one thing, obviously, we missed at that time was depth. I get that. But in terms of those two in the midfield, they were steel. And Wanyama, I think, actually made Dembele better. I genuinely do, because I think people harp and hype Dembele, and he was brilliant, but I think Wanyama allowed him to be brilliant. I think Wanyama allowed him to be a little bit more out there, to get about the pitch a bit more, knowing that that monster beside me will deal with something. If the ball goes in behind me, I know Wanyama's flying in there to deal with it. And I think that's what the key thing is for me. I think that's what we're missing. Is it, we could have another left back, another centre back? Yes. Is it we need to be better maybe sometimes from, stopping crosses? Yes. But I think Wanyama and Steele is what this team's missing. Not even Wanyama, maybe it's just Steele. Maybe it's just a bit of dominance we're missing. We don't have that. I think at times maybe we're a little bit too young in certain areas as well, which is fine because they're going to develop. I get that. But for right now, I think that's what we're missing, is someone that can just take the game by the scruff of the neck. At times maybe slow it down. At times just negate issues that maybe you're about to get from the opposition. There's a reason why we had so much success against the bigger teams when Yama was playing, because do you know what? Maybe we're not going to have 50, 60% of the ball. But if the ball goes near him, you're not going past him. Obviously at times you can. That's human. But I think for me, that's the one thing I miss. I'm interested to know what you guys think, and don't go, Pedro Porro's be better in the air. I don't want to hear that, because Pedro Porro being better in the air isn't the real issue. It's not. Pedro Porro being better in the air doesn't stop, the amount of back post goals being tapped in. It's a tap in. Do you expect Pedro Porro to be diving in head first? So I want to know what you think. Is it a bit of steel in the midfield? Is it a centre half that needs to be a bit more dominant? Is it your creative player being able to take the game by a scruff of the neck and working some magic? I want to know what you think, because I'm interested. And let's have a general discussion about this, because I think instead of pointing fingers, let's go, I think this is what we're missing, and having a discussion and learning from one another about this. I'm keen to know what you guys think. Let me know down below what you do think. Obviously, like the video if you do. Comment, like I said. And obviously, I'll see you around tomorrow to do the loan roundup to speak a bit more about Spurs. Take care, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.